What is going on, my fellow college football fans? If you have watched basically the last video on this channel, you know that I think college football is the greatest sport in the world. I have one example of that so far, and next season I plan on getting at least a couple of more and just continue demonstrating why that is. This Friday is the start of something that is going to be such a great addition to the college football landscape, and that is the 12-team college football playoff. This Friday, December 20th, we have our first ever home college football playoff game. This first round of home playoff games are just going to be amazing. So we're just going to get right into it because I'm excited to talk about it, and let's just do it. All right, so first off, the very first ever college football playoff home game. It's going to be a good one. You have the University of Indiana Hoosiers heading to their in-state, I guess, rival. They haven't really played in like 30 years. Indiana Hoosiers heading to South Bend, Indiana to play the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. This is going to be a pretty interesting game because it really depends on if Indiana's, I believe they're the number one offense in the country. If they show up, this could get very interesting. But if the team that played Ohio State shows up, it could very well just be one sided in Notre Dame's favor. I haven't really watched any Indiana games, and I've watched parts of a couple of Notre Dame games, most notably the NIU game. However, pretty much everything after that game, Notre Dame has basically just handled business. They destroyed a very good Army team. Uh, Personally, between these two, I think I got to go with Notre Dame in South Bend with touchdown Jesus. He's going to bless the Fighting Irish to push them to victory in this first round. So we'll kick it to the bedroom and see what Sheba thinks. Kitty, who you got in this one? And there you have it. Kitty is going to take the upset of Indiana over Notre Dame in South Bend. Like I said, I could totally see it. It really just depends on which version of Indiana shows up. On to the next one. You have College Football Christmas on Saturday, December 21st. You have three games starting at 10 a.m. Mountain Time. I'm getting out of bed. I'm hopping on the couch, throwing some pizzas on the red thing over there. That's a pizza griddle. That's going to get a lot of use that day, and we're just sitting there watching football all day. It's going to be a great day. First up, you have the Southern Methodist University Mustangs from Dallas, Texas, traveling to State College, Pennsylvania to play the Penn State Nittany Lions. If it isn't already obvious, we don't really do stats on this channel. We do vibes only. And this is going to be in Happy Valley, 3,000, however many people that stadium holds. They're going to do the whiteout. It's going to be arguably the best atmosphere of this entire first round. I cannot wait for it. Personally, I'm going to take Penn State. I just think, how they were basically able to score a whole bunch on Oregon, the number one team. I think 37 points they put up. They also have Tyler Warren, who quite frankly should have been a Heisman finalist. Personally, I just think Penn State has too much going on. Better team in that atmosphere. I don't see SMU overcoming it. So now we'll kick it to, I believe she's in the bathroom now. I don't know why she's in there, but she's going to make her pick, and we'll see where Kitty lands on this one. All right, there you have it. Sheba's going to take Penn State as well. We get one that we agree on. Moving on to the next game, you have the Clemson Tigers, your ACC champions, going to Austin, Texas to play the Texas Longhorns. This one's going to be at 4 Eastern, 2 Mountain Time, pretty much right after the other game. Once again, just the atmosphere in Texas is going to be phenomenal, and I just don't see Clemson being able to do a whole lot. The only Clemson game I watched was the Georgia one. It was like 31-3. It just wasn't even competitive at all. Georgia just smoked them. I could realistically see Texas doing the same, and as much as it pains me to say it, as somebody who doesn't like anything from Texas that isn't Bucky's, I gotta go with the Longhorns on this one, and ugh, I feel gross saying that. Well, let's just see what Kitty has to say and see if she has a better opinion on this than I do. Kitty, who you got? Kitty, where? Kitty's taking the upset of Clemson, going into Texas and pulling the upset. Horns down indeed. Anyway, we move on to our final first round game, that being what might be the best game of this first round. University of Tennessee Volunteers heading to Columbus in the Horseshoe, taking on Ohio State. I think this one's going to be a phenomenal matchup. It's the 8 and 9 teams. It's going to be pretty even. This one's a bit tough to say. You have Ohio State, who their last game was that loss to Michigan. Huge rivalry, big time loss. The whole flag planting thing after the game. This could be a pissed off Ohio State team. But personally, having only watched one Ohio State game and no Tennessee games, based purely off vibes, I got to go with Tennessee. Just a lot of things about that Michigan game really soured me on Ohio State. I just don't see it, and I got Tennessee going into Columbus, pulling off the upset. That's just my take on it. So we'll see what my co-host thinks. Kitty, how do you feel about this one? All right, it seems once again Kitty disagrees with me. She's going to take Ohio State at home. Again, not a bad choice. This is the 8-9 matchup. It could go either way. Uh, Either way, whoever wins this has to go play Oregon in the Rose Bowl, and that's going to be a tough test for either of these teams. So that's going to do it for our first round. So while I go worry and figure out my laundry situation, I'm going to leave you with some highlights of the one true Heisman Trophy winner for 2024. I'll be right back. Who'd have thought laundry could be such an annoying process? Anyway, we are back. We are now going to talk about our quarterfinal second round. These are the first neutral site games where all of the teams who got buys now they get their first taste of playoff games, I guess. Whatever. You can't tell, much like everything else in life, this is all done on the fly, no script. We just roll with it. Anyway, first game in this second round is going to be Boise State in the Fiesta Bowl. Have a great history of Boise State in those games, particularly that Oklahoma one from 2007, which was in fact 17 years ago. Hope all of my fellow olds are managing their back pain, because, yeah. Anyway, December 31st at 7:30 Eastern Time, Boise State is going to play the winner of SMU and Penn State. Kitty and I pretty much agreed that Penn State's going to take this one. So Boise State versus Penn State, personally, I just think Ashton Genty is going to be too much to stop for anybody. This Penn State team is good, and like I said, they have Tyler Warren, somebody else who was cursed with one of the worst names that you could possibly give to a child. Uh, but Ashton Genty is one of one. He's having like the second greatest running back season of all time. He is almost certainly going to break Barry Sanders' record in this game. And personally, probably my one controversial take of this entire thing, I'm going to go with Boise State over Penn State, pulling off, as far as seeds go, not really an upset, but it's kind of an upset. So I'm going to go with Boise State in the Fiesta Bowl once again because they just seem to pull off wild shit in that game. So we're going to head to Kitty and see who she thinks is going to win Boise State and Penn State. Kitty, what are your thoughts? All right, looks like Kitty is going to stick with Penn State over Boise State. It's going to be a pretty even matchup. It really just depends on whose defense is able to shut down the other Heisman caliber player. So you can go either way. So we disagree on that one yet again. We move on to the next day, the January 1st Bowls. That is a Wednesday, I believe. Yep, Wednesday, January 1st. First up is going to be Arizona State versus the winner of Clemson and Texas in the Peach Bowl in Atlanta, Georgia. Personally, I have Texas over Clemson, so this will be Arizona State versus Texas. Before the playoffs got started, there was a lot of talk about the fifth seed having more or less the easiest path to at least the semifinals. And that's kind of true here. You have the SEC runner-up playing, a not amazing Clemson team, and then following that up with an Arizona State team who, again, good, not like super amazing or anything. Cam Scadaboo is phenomenal. My dream natty would be Arizona State, Boise State, Scadaboo versus Genty, ban the forward pass, just eliminate it completely, let those two just run and just see what happens. But unfortunately, that's not how things work, and I'm going to go ahead and begrudgingly once again take Texas to beat Arizona State in the Peach Bowl. God, that hurts to say. Anyway, Sheba's is going to be between Arizona State and Clemson, so let's kick it to her and see what she thinks about that. All right, I can always stand by a big upset pick. Sheba taking Arizona State over Clemson. Sure, I don't see why not. Anyway, we're going to move on to the next game, the Rose Bowl. Always a classic, always a great time. One of the most iconic stadiums in all of sports. Oregon versus the winner of Ohio State and Tennessee. Once again, Sheba and I differed on this one. I have Oregon going against Tennessee. I think I'm going to give that one to Oregon. I've only watched a handful of Oregon games this year, and their defense isn't amazing, but after having spent the past decade watching my team in the Pac 12 with the Ducks, it doesn't matter what their defense does because that offense is going to put up points, and you do not win a shootout against the Oregon Ducks. You can go back to what was it, the '01 Fiesta Bowl to get a great example of that. So this Oregon team's going to score points, and I think they're just going to score more. I had Tennessee winning the first round over Ohio State, so I think Oregon is going to put up more points than Tennessee. So I'm going to take Oregon in this one to move on to the semifinals. Sheba's was between Ohio State and Oregon, which would be a rematch of a game that was a 1 point game. Had some, controversy about some clock stuff at the end, but we're going to kick it to her and see what she thinks about the a rematch in the Rose Bowl, the good old Pac 12 Big Ten matchup in the Rose Bowl. That's going to be a good one. So we'll kick it to her and see what her thoughts are. Sheba, who you got? All All right, so Sheba and I can agree on this one. We both got the Ducks winning against whomever their opponent is in the Rose Bowl. There's a reason Oregon is the only undefeated team in the entire nation. That's a damn good team. Anyway, we move on to the last quarterfinal game, January 1st at 8:45 Eastern. We're starting it late in New Orleans, Louisiana, in the Sugar Bowl. Georgia will be playing the winner of Indiana and Notre Dame. We differed on this one as well. I had Notre Dame. Me personally, between Georgia and Notre Dame, Georgia's quarterback situation is kind of weird. I haven't heard any updates on how Carson Beck is doing after his injury in the SEC championship game, but the way that team rallied around their backup and the way they were able to basically continue moving on, I got to go with the Dogs in this one. I think Georgia is one of the favorites to win the whole thing, so I'm going to take Georgia over Notre Dame. That's my pick. Kitty, she had Indiana pulling the upset, so let's see who she has between the Georgia Bulldogs and the Indiana Hoosiers. Kitty, what's your thoughts?
Go for it.
Kitty. All right, so there you have it. Both of the quarterfinal brackets are now complete. I'm gonna go check on my laundry situation again, and we'll be right back after some more highlights from your 2024, the true Heisman Trophy winner. We'll be back. Oh man. All right, we are back to talk about our semifinal games. Now, as far as I'm aware, they haven't really decided how the matchups are going to work with this one between the Orange Bowl on Thursday, January 9th, and the Cotton Bowl on Friday, January 10th, both at 7:30 Eastern. My opinion would be, if like my bracket ends up being the close one with Oregon and Texas, that's probably going to take the Cotton Bowl, and then Georgia, Boise State would take the Orange Bowl. Similarly, with Sheba's Oregon or Arizona State would be, they'd be taking the Cotton Bowl as well, and then your Penn State, Indiana would be taking the Orange Bowl. Either way, who knows? That's probably going to be like a selection thing. So anyway, we're going to hop into my bracket. The first game, which we have, is the Orange Bowl. So we'll do Georgia and Boise State from my side of the bracket. Georgia and Boise State's going to be an interesting one. Obviously, again, you have Ashton Genty, but if there's any team in this tournament who could stop him, it is the Georgia Bulldogs. They always play great defense down there, except for that first half against Alabama. But beyond that, they played great defense against Texas. I'm going to go ahead and take the Bulldogs on this one. I think most of that is because Georgia is probably the team that I watched the second most behind my Buffs. I watched them, versus Clemson. I watched them versus Alabama. I watched them versus Georgia Tech, and then I watched the SEC championship game. So I'm probably more familiar with this Georgia team than I am with any other team in either of our brackets. So I'm going to take the Dogs to beat Boise State in the Orange Bowl and move on to the national championship finals in Atlanta. So that'll basically be a home game for them. So on Sheba's side, we have Penn State versus Indiana, which would be a pretty damn fun game. Nice Big Ten matchup in the Orange Bowl, as it goes. So, Kitty, let's get your thoughts on Penn State versus Indiana. All right, Kitty's going to stick with the Nittany Lions to win their semifinal game and make it as the first team into the national championship. Up next on my side of the bracket, we have Oregon versus Texas. This would be another damn good game. The only Texas game I watched was the SEC championship. Outside of the one mistake in overtime where they let a quarterback who couldn't throw the ball hand off to a running back to go right up the middle. Instead of just sending everybody to sell out to stop the run, I don't know what happened. This Texas team is damn good, but also this Oregon team is also damn good. It really depends on how Texas uses their quarterbacks. If they throw Arch Manning out there to, do what he's been doing, it could be a tough game for the Ducks, but I think if they stick with Quinn Ewers like they did in the SEC championship game, I could just see the Ducks just outscoring them, trying to turn it into a shootout. And again, you don't win a shootout against the Ducks. I'm going to take Oregon in this one. Oregon beats Texas and meets Georgia in the national championship. I know it's not exactly like the most exciting bracket with the 1 and 2 playing for the national championship, but if we're being honest with ourselves, that does seem to be the most realistic situation, and it's going to be a great game between the Ducks and Bulldogs. So we'll head over to Sheba's side, which is a vastly more interesting bracket. We have Oregon and Arizona State. Oregon Ducks and Arizona State, good old Pac 12 matchup in the semifinals. Kitty, what are your thoughts on that one? All right, Sheba's going to take what might, quite frankly, be the biggest upset of this entire playoffs, taking the Arizona State Sun Devils over the undefeated Ducks, even. So as it stands now, my national championship matchup, the Oregon Ducks versus the Georgia Bulldogs, and Sheba's is the, again, vastly more interesting Arizona State versus Penn State. That would be a hell of a final. So we'll go into our championship predictions. As I said before, I've watched this Georgia team more than any team that wasn't Colorado. Uh, I just think they're too good, and even if their quarterback situation is still kind of up in the air, I think I'm still going to take Georgia in that game. Like I said, their defense is. I think it's just going to be enough to stop Oregon from turning it into a big shootout. You saw how they played Texas in the SEC championship game, a super low scoring defensive game. I think if they're able to do that against Oregon, they just outright stop Oregon from scoring. And Oregon's defense let up 37 in the Big Ten championship game. Like I said, I got to go with the dogs in this one. Georgia Bulldogs winning be what their third national championship in 4 years. Just an incredible run they have going on down there in Athens. So that's my pick. Georgia wins a national championship over Oregon. Kitty's pick. We have Arizona State and Penn State. Like I said, a vastly more interesting matchup. Cam Scadaboo, Tyler Warren, two guys who should have been Heisman finalists alongside Hunter and Genty. That's going, if that happens, that would be a super interesting game. So let's kick it to the bedroom and see what Kitty's thoughts on her national championship game are. All right, I can respect that. So, according to Sheba, your 2024 national champions are going to be the Arizona State Sun Devils. And if you ask me, it's going to be the Georgia Bulldogs. Really, any of these teams winning would be pretty cool. This whole playoff system is going to be just great TV. I can't wait to sit down. Like I said, that Saturday, December 21st is just going to be like Christmas. I'm just going to sit there from 10 in the morning until I fall asleep on the couch from eating too much pizza. These whole playoffs are going to be absolutely fantastic. So, because Kitty does like to get a little competitive, we are going to make this a competition. What we're going to do is for our brackets between myself and her, it's kind of weird phrasing it with like upsets and stuff like that, but every higher seed that wins, you'll get 1 point. I have a lot of games on mine that could be potential 1 point games. For every lower seed, every away team, every upset, if you will, you'll get 2 points. Sheba has a ton of 2 point games on her bracket. And then for correctly predicting the national champion, you'll get 10 points. So that's going to be our system. Definitely will make a recap after the playoffs are over on January 20th. I believe that is also 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. So probably later in that week. Definitely make a recap of this, going over the bracket, tallying up our points, see which one of us won. If she wins, she'll get like more treats or maybe a new toy or something. We'll have to see. She has a lot of bold takes, so I'm not saying I don't like her chances, but also if I were betting, her parlays on there would be some pretty sizable wins. Anyway, so that's going to do it for me. Kitty is in the bedroom sleeping. She had to do a lot of thinking to make her picks. So, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this, leave a like, leave a comment of your predictions. Let me know who you think is going to win the 2024 College Football Playoff National Championship. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.